Demilune today. So in the previous video we laid up the top, got the brick laid apron done. So what I'm going to do today is mostly show you how I'm cutting this veneer for the top, and then we're going to wind up just gluing it up, putting it in the veneer bag. And then that's pretty much it. I'm going to try to keep these a little bit shorter. I realized that a couple of other ones got a little bit long, and they've been taking a while to upload on my really slow rural internet connection. So I think keeping them a little bit shorter is going to be a little easier for me to get them up to YouTube. So let me move the camera and show you what we're working on at the moment. Alright, so hopefully this is easy enough to see. So typically the Demilune veneered top, we have some ellipse in the middle that mostly mimics the outside perimeter, and then a series of alternating veneer patterns or colors that radiate out from that point. So I thought I'd play with this a little bit. Kind of hard to see with the tape in here, but I've got the red for C for Colorado, the yellow sun, and then mahogany and oak, sort of radiations going out, and then between the alternating colors here, I kind of cut a little bit of a profile of a sort of a mountain scene out of it. I don't know, we'll see how this looks. You know, it sounded like a good idea, and you never quite know until we get it done. But I guess I'm kind of committed to doing this now, so this is what we're going to finish up with. So what I've got underneath is just some old grayish type of veneer. I think this is all like dyed sycamore or birch. And I need that for the bottom of my MDF substrate, because if we don't veneer both sides, then we kind of change the moisture absorption and evaporation from one side of the top to the other. And that top will wind up moving a good bit on me, even though MDF is pretty stable as it is. Once we put something on one side, we have to equalize that sort of tension in that piece to the other side. So I'm going to move the camera over to the laser, and let me show you what I'm working on over there. So kind of hard to see, you got a little bit tight space here. But this is my red and black Chinese laser, 20 by 28. So what I've got in the inside already is piece of oak is here. I've been cutting everything on the top here. Let me go ahead and just sort of do something here. I'll frame what we're going to cut, and you can see that laser head, and it's basically moving to the outside perimeters of what we're going to cut. So this is a good way to sort of see what area of that piece we're going to wind up taking out. And this one has the sort of little red laser beam that's on the bottom that just is a pointer to show you where you're cutting. It didn't actually fire in that sort of instance. So let me move back over to the computer here, and hopefully I can show you what I'm working with. So this is a piece of software called Lightburn. So let me zoom in out here a little bit. So the top is actually bigger than the bed. My bed is 20 by 28 inches. Our top is 17 by 36, so I can't cut everything at once. So what I have to wind up doing is, this is my geometry. I did the geometry in Rhino. Exported it as an AI file, which is an Adobe Illustrator file. That basically allows the vectors to be imported into Lightburn. Could have done DXF as well. That is AutoCAD digital exchange format. But Lightburn seems to like AI files a little bit better than it does DXF. So Here you can see the sea, the sun, and the sort of radiated pattern that I've got going. Down at the bottom you can see all these colors. Each one of those little patterns is assigned to a different color. So I can change whether it is output, whether it shows on the screen. They're all showing on the screen right now. The only one I'm going to cut is this one right here. You can see it's a little bit yellow. What Lightburn allows me to do is to select parameters for that particular operation. The name is kind of irrelevant. I'm here basically running about sort of 4 inches per second. It's relatively quick. I could slow it down. I could go a bit faster. At the power output right now, I got 65% of what my laser can put out. You generally don't want to run it at 100. That just decreases the laser, the life of the laser tube a little too quickly. I could wind up slowing this down a lot and then wind up taking a less power cut on it. But this is the way I got set up for now. So this is what we'll do. I can decide whether I want to turn the air assist on or off. What the air assist is, it runs some air through the nozzle. So as that beam cuts, it's cutting a little bit cleaner. And there's a whole bunch of other offsets here. I can set a kerf offset. So say, for example, I didn't need to with this one, but if I were doing a tight sort of inlay, if I know what the width of my laser beam is, I can wind up setting that kerf offset for whatever the width of the laser beam is, and Lightburn automatically cuts to the opposite side of that. So that's pretty much it for this. So let me go ahead and close this. This is the one we're going to cut. You can see I've got it set to output, and it's showing on the screen right now. I guess for this, I'll just leave it open. I am going to turn on the air. We're going to get quite a bit of smoke with this. So normally I would have the dust extraction on the laser, but it's going to be awful loud, so I'm not going to turn it on at the moment. So let me just plug in my air, and we'll go ahead and cut this piece. Generally, it's not recommended to run this laser with the door open. You can see we're getting quite a bit of smoke. But just for this short bit, I'm going to wind up doing that. And you can see it cuts it pretty quickly. I don't know if I cut all the way through. I'm just going to run it again. My veneer wasn't setting tight to the bed, so some parts it didn't cut quite as all the way through like I would have wanted it to. So now we got our piece. Let's go back over to the bench. Okay, so I'm just going to tape this in. So what I'm using, so most of you are used to seeing that white veneer tape that you have to wet down. I'm using this no wet veneer tape. I got this from Veneer Supplies. So I'm going to line this up. And this stuff you can stretch it across the seam so it pulls it nice and tight. So I'm just going to finish taping this down. So this no wet veneer tape is pretty easy to use. The only downside of it is after it comes out of the bag here in about an hour, I want to try to scrape this stuff off as soon as I can. It's a little bit harder to take off than the white wet veneer tape, but we'll see how it goes. Generally, haven't had too much of a problem with this stuff. There's been an occasion where it has been a little more problematic. So real quick, I'm just going to take down some of these corners. I left them off just so it was a little bit easier to see. I want to take them off now just because all these little seams in the corners, as I put some glue on there, they're going to want to start moving on me. If they move too much, that they might snag as I put them in the bag. I tend to use that breather mesh on the top of my piece. Some of these edges can catch on that breather mesh. So let me just get this done real quick. So both this top piece and the bottom piece are cut a little bit bigger than what I want. Generally, you can have some issues with sort of the veneer properly adhering to our substrate on the very edges. So it's always a good idea just to make these just a little bit bigger than you need, and then trim the whole panel back to size once it's out of the bag. All right, that was good. So we carry it over here, and I'm going to move the camera here just a second. So I tend to use a fair bit of veneer. Just to kind of show you what I've got here. I was digging through a bunch of my pieces just sort of get things down. So let me show you. So this is a bunch of different bundles. I've got some mahogany here. I think there's some sapele sitting down at the bottom, and there's some beautiful Coruscant white oak veneer that I've got from B&B Rare Woods, and it was pretty rare and just beautiful stuff, so I decided to pick that up. Here I got, it's kind of hard to see, but hopefully that works. This is some zebra wood, and then unlike the stuff that Neil brings in, this is real zebra wood. It's not dyed poplar. Neil likes to bring in the dyed poplar stuff just to throw everybody for a loop. Here we've got a bunch of quilted macore, and this is some really beautiful, hopefully you can see this. This is some really, really nice figured Honduran mahogany. And of course, I don't remember whether I brought some of this other stuff in at some point, but whole bunch of sort of different things. Pomel sapele. This is some quilted koa. And again, this came from Dave and Stacy over at B&B Rare Woods. I think he bought a whole stack of this stuff. I don't know. I think he told me like 20 odd years ago for $100,000, and he's just getting around to selling it the last couple of years. Fantastic stuff. Black rosewood. Again, really nice stuff. Some bird's eye maple, some colored stuff, whatever. But yeah, so a whole lot of variety of different species, figures, and stuff you can get with veneer, and then of course some of the dyed colored stuff. So, all right, let's come back over here. All right. So this is the substrate that we're going to wind up using today. So you can see that it's more than big enough for my top. The gray stuff is a little bit bigger, but that's going to be on the bottom, so that's not that big of a deal. Over here, this is sort of the Demilune top that we laid out the other day. You can see it's a good bit bigger. So I'll have to figure out where I want to exactly size this. Here's our brick-laid apron. And again, I sort of used the top again to sort of cut the profile. I cut the profile roughly on the bandsaw, and then I used a series of pattern bits and my top to smooth this out. I've got a couple areas here where there's a little bit of tear up, so I'll show you how to fix that in a later video. So, let's get started with this. So I'm using a cold press veneer glue from Veneer Supplies. This stuff is a little darker color, so if I do get some bleed through veneer, it's not going to wind up showing overly dramatic. So, all right. So typically, here's that. So typically, if I'm just doing a little bit of veneering, I wind up using one of these sort of auto body Bondo putties, and that works real well for spreading out the glue. For something a little bit bigger, or if I have a lot of veneering to do, and I do have a fair bit of veneering to do over the next couple weeks, what I'll do is get one of these smaller paint pans and this low nap roller from Home Despot. It just works real well for getting the glue down. So one thing I want to do real quick is I'm just going to lay this back up here and make a pencil mark on the outside of this so I don't have to put glue where I don't need it. And I'm going to start with the bottom. Just because, as I said, this veneer will start to curl on me a little bit as it gets wet. It's easier to control if I have the piece I want to save on top. I can prevent that curling a little bit more by getting it in the bag a little quicker. All right. So, kind of a balance between having enough and too much. Not enough, and obviously my veneer won't stick. If I put too much, then I have a lot more bleed through coming through. That's not a huge deal, but I prefer to avoid any real overly excess bleed through the glue through the veneer if I can. The other issue with this substrate is it's going to soak up a bit of glue, so I'm going to cover it real quick and then make sure I've got the coverage that I want where the veneer is going to go. So a little heavy here, a little too light there, so I'm just going to move some of this glue around. Alright, I think that looks pretty good. So again, the cold pressed veneer glue is a specially formulated PVA. Regular PVA glue can creep. It's probably not a huge deal for this top if it did, but generally when you're veneering, you don't want your glue to move around. So. From Veneer Supplies, they sell several different colors, depending on you can sort of tailor the color a little bit more to the tone of your veneer. So if you're using maybe something like maple, you can get a real light color veneer glue. I think this is the darker one. Actually, you might sell a darker one. Yeah, I've got a darker one. And you sell something in between this and the light, which is basically just a mixture of the two. So if you happen to do enough veneering, you don't necessarily need to buy a gallon of every color. You can kind of just sort of mix the colors to get a better sort of tonal match to what you need.